The wielder of magic in both myth and history has at their disposal a wide range of supernatural tools. From arcane tomes, magical wands, animal familiars, swords, candles, bells, rings, and so on, it's as if the very world is at the fingertips of the mage or witch and is charged with their power. Among these tools, the magical cloak has proven ubiquitous through time and culture. Indeed, the cloak of the sorcerer often has a very specific kind of magical property, that of rendering its wearer invisible, a motif reaching back into Welsh mythology and surviving to this day in Harry Potter. In this episode, I want to explore a text from the world of Kabbalah Ma'asit, or practical Kabbalah, or just really Jewish magic, that describes the production of just such a magical garment, hence the name of the text, the Sefer HaMalbush, or the Book of the Garment. If you're interested in magic, Hermetic philosophy, or mysticism, make sure to subscribe and check out my other content on topics in esotericism. Also, if you want to support my work of providing accessible, scholarly, and free content on topics in esotericism here on YouTube, I'd hope you consider supporting my work on Patreon or with a one-time donation. You can find those links below, and I really appreciate your consideration of supporting this channel and making this presentation possible. Now, let's explore a magical garment infused with divine names, which empowers the Kabbalist or sorcerer with all manner of supernatural powers. But wait, there's more this week. Come along for Magical Cloaks and stick around this week for a bonus magical text on astral and angelic magic. I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and welcome to Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion. While magical garments are a commonplace in many tales and myths, descriptions about how to actually produce them are rather rare in the surviving magical literature. Of course, various lamens and other objects meant to be worn on the body of the sorcerer are relatively well attested, but an entire article of clothing is much more rare. Though the Sefer HaMalbush is exceptional in this regard, though, as we'll see, the garment functions more as a conduit for divine power than as a magical garment in itself. The text is known in several Hebrew and Aramaic versions, which seem to have been produced sometime in the Geonic period of Jewish history, or the period just after the redaction of the Babylonian Talmud, around 600 or 500 of the Common Era, to around a little after 1000 of the Common Era. Two principal redactions seem to have proven popular. What may have been an earlier text is called the Torah Malbush, or the garment instructions to be very literal, and it describes the preparation of a golden plate which is worn around the neck, and after a series of vigorous purifications provides the wearer a wide range of magical powers. Of course, golden lamens are well attested in the ancient world. The most famous, I think, probably are the famed Orphic gold tablets found in various graves throughout the Mediterranean region. These are perhaps to aid in success of achieving a good afterlife. Interestingly, Torah HaMalbush refers to this lamen as a tzitz, which is the same Hebrew word found in the Bible for the golden headband worn by the high priest in the Jerusalem temple. This earlier or perhaps parallel text is known primarily from the Cairo Geniza, and it perhaps eventually transformed into the Sefer HaMalbush as we currently have it. Indeed, magical headbands with divine names on them continue to be used down to contemporary ritual magical practice, as I understand. The Sefer HaMalbush itself appears in several different Hebrew and Aramaic versions and describes the process of Lebishat Hashem, or the donning or putting on of the name, in which the power of secret names of God come to be infused into the being of the practitioner, thus providing them with supernatural quasi-divine power. This process of Lebishat Hashem is known from other magical texts as well, maybe most famously in the Charba de Moshe, or the Sword of Moses, which I've actually made an episode about. You can check out the card above if you want to learn more about this really interesting magical code book. In the Sefer HaMalbush, we are provided elaborate instructions for producing a Me'il HaSatikah, or a mantle of righteousness, inscribed or written upon with a very elaborate divine name, which, after donning and a series of ritual immersions, transfers some of the divine power to the practitioner. We're also told that this entire process requires 7 different steps. A first period of 7-day fasting and careful attention to avoid anything coming into contact with the practitioner which would render them tameh, or ritually unclean. After this first period, there is a ritual immersion, or mikveh, followed by the production of the text's namesake, the magical garment. The garment itself is made from gazelle skin or gazelle parchment, and again, probably pointing to a Near East origin of the text more generally, which is fashioned into a sleeveless cloak covering the shoulders down to the hips, along with a hood. On the front and rear of the garment, one is to write a long and elaborate divine name, which may also include some angelic names, all of which are referred to in the text as great and terrible. We are told that the hood can also be replaced with a golden diadem, or tzitz, just like the Torat HaMalbush, along with a shorter name, mostly consisting of the theonym Yah over and over again, to be written on either the diadem or on the hood. Once the garment is complete, another more intense period of fasting and ritual purity begins, including mikveh immersions every evening. Here the practitioner is only allowed a Spartan vegetarian diet, with even eggs and fish being forbidden. This is somewhat curious because in the Jewish law of kashrut, fish are taken to be neither meat nor dairy, parav, pointing to the intensity of this fast. These fasts, it appears, are akin to the minor fast which lasts from dawn till darkness, and at the end of this 7-day period, on the 8th evening or 8th night, one must go to the water of ritual immersion and invoke the names from the garment over them, the waters that is. If a green glowing form appears over the water, then this, according to the text, is taken as a sign that the proper level of purity has not been achieved and you have to continue the ritual. If this proper level of purity isn't reached, to continue, one has to give alms to the poor and distribute food to the hungry. And given that you've been basically fasting for 2 weeks, you should have plenty to give away. And begin another 7-day period of fasting. If, however, the form floating above the water is red in color, then you are pure enough to enter the water up to the stomach. Not a full immersion as one would expect in a mikveh, but upon exiting you become infused with divine power, appearing as if an harmony accompanies you, and being able to invoke a series of fearful angels. Though the text here becomes pretty vague. It appears as if the angels should appear without hesitation, though there is a reference to something like doing the rituals at the proper hour, which isn't spelled out in any detail. Further, we're also told that the company of angels that will join you will only do so for 3-4 hours at most, and for only 7 days in total, and only just once a day for some reason. Now, just how to accomplish this invocation remains mysterious, and indeed, this section seems to require knowledge of another Jewish magical text produced around the same time, the Sefer HaYashar, or the Book of the Upright Way, or the Book of the Correct Way. There's a lot of words to translate this word HaYashar. It appears that the Sefer HaYashar was produced around the same time as the Sefer HaMalbush and the Charba de Moshe, probably within the same magical circles, and it claims that it was given out of pity to Adam by the angel Galitzur and was passed down to its current edition. This text takes its name from one of the mysterious books referred to in the Torah, but otherwise lost or maybe even never existed, like the Sefer Milchamot Hashem, and it's important that this text not be confused with the later medieval text on ethics or the spurious midrashic text that became somewhat popular in the 19th century. Some version of this text was likely known to folks like the High Gaon, who reference it by name, but also to Karaite Jews who also mention it in their anti-Rabbinite polemics. As you may know, the Karaites were and are, there are about 50,000 in existence in the world, were anti-rabbinical Jews who rejected the authority of the Talmud and the oral Jewish law more generally. Of course, they went on to make their own oral Jewish law, and as you can imagine, the Karaite-Rabbinite beef would make for some great epic rap battles. The Sadia Gaon versus Anan bin David, come on, it basically writes itself. For real though, regardless, the text is pretty well attested and describes another divine name, a series of complex supplications, and a ritual which provides a range of semi-divine powers over the forces of nature, over various creatures, even power over the sun and the moon, a la Joshua at the Battle of Gilgal. The Sefer HaYashar involves a fast from meat and even certain spices, ritual purity, but also giving alms to the poor, though interestingly enough, ritual fumigations involving various kinds of incense. The core of this text, however, are the various angelic powers which are said to preside over various seasons, astrological periods, and the hours of the day and night. It appears that the Sefer HaMalbush probably has something like these tables in mind when providing advice on the invocations of the various angels. Indeed, the Sefer HaYashar gives a much fuller range of the divine powers of the divine name that it offers. If you're curious, these include things like drying up rivers, making the dead speak, extinguishing fires, breaking rocks, taming serpents, making barren women fertile, rending the sea, a la Moses, melting swords, healing the sick, driving out demons, delivering captives, and also shaking foundations. I think this has in mind perhaps the walls of Jericho. Also, you have to call out the divine names 21 times, 3 times 7, and this also provides mystical knowledge of the Torah, which parallels the Sar Torah literature found in certain Merkava or Hechalot texts. More on those in the card above. Recall that invocation summons an angel called the Prince of the Torah, Sar Torah, that instantaneously teaches one a wide range of rabbinical wisdom. I mean, who wants to spend all day bent over a copy of the Vilna Shas when you can just get an angelic tutor to teach it to you immediately? As I mentioned earlier, although it's not exactly clear, the Sefer HaMalbush, the Charba de Moshe, and the Sefer HaYashar were all probably sharing some similar culture of production, probably in the area around Babylon or maybe in Palestine around the year 1000 or so of the Common Era. And both of these texts survive into the Christian Middle Ages, and a version of the Sefer Malbush actually appears in both the Sefer Ma'amar HaAtzilut HaSmalit, or the treatise on the emanations of the left-hand side. This is an early Kabbalistic explanation of the origins of evil produced in the 13th century in Spain, but it also appears in a slightly different form in the Sefer HaMalbush, or the Book of the Angel of Raziel. Raziel, of course, means the secrets of God, which that book is still printed to this day. Regardless, what we have in this brief text, the Sefer HaMalbush, is a 1,000-year-old complex ritual for the production of a magical cloak of sorts, which, infused with the divine name, provides one with a range of magical powers. Curiously, however, invisibility doesn't appear to be one of them. Sorry. Further, the Sefer HaYashar also provides a more astral-angelic magic, which seems to mesh well with other Jewish magical texts from this period. So, 2 magical texts in this episode. Not bad, not bad. The authoritative study of these texts is Irina Wandrey's Das Buch des Gewandes und das Buch auf Aufrechten, which, as you can probably tell through my bad pronunciation, is in German, and is kind of difficult to find, and only 120 euros for an ebook, which, not quite Brill prices, is getting there, so good job with those expensive academic book prices there. However, I will say that this study is incredibly careful, looking at a range of versions with a careful attention to both historical and textual detail and their transmissions. It actually just seems like the kind of book that you would hope to find actually to be written in German. The independent scholar Feliciano has also produced a convenient English translation of both of these texts, which are available on their academia page, which I'll link below. The best histories of Jewish magic are those by Harari and Bohak, and both are equally worth checking out for their slightly different emphases. I'll also include a link to a digital version of a manuscript from Oxford that dates from the 13th century, though this recension is different from the others. This is a pretty common thing. I'll also link to a page of the Sefer HaMalbush with yet another recension of the Sefer HaMalbush. Welcome to studying real magical texts, folks. Recensions, recensions, recensions. Well, make sure to subscribe for more content on magic, esotericism, and the occult, and make sure to check out this playlist for more historical books of magic. Until next time, I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and thanks for watching Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion.